Donc, merci beaucoup pour tout le monde d'avoir organisé cet événement important. It's a very important subject. We see it from early on with children, girls. I did a presentation at FAS in early May, and it's a cultural thing. It's when we raise children, we raise girls, we tend to tell them not to touch too many things, be careful, don't be gentle with things. I was the kind of kid that broke everything all the time. I was always reprimanded. I spent a lot of time in my room, and so I discovered a lot of toys. I rebuilt them and everything like that. But that was a conception that was not welcome, and it's still today. Sometimes when we say things to girls more than boys, boys can be dirty. They can play. They can break. My brother would break things, and people would say, "Oh, he's just fixing it." Whereas I would do the same thing and be careful, you're going to break it. So that's why I've been always interested in technology. La conception technologique, ça a toujours été une préoccupation de ma part parce que j'ai une fascination pour les objets techniques, OT. I've always had a fascination for those. C'est une grande problématique quand on parle de gestion des matières résiduelles, waste management. It's one of the biggest challenge of the 21st century. When we talk about water, water is one as well, but waste management, where is all the waste going? There's no more room for waste. Okay, this is a huge, huge challenge for tomorrow, for children, for us. C'est essentiel à l'équilibre environnemental. They were saying in the clip in the Wasteland that if you can give it to your students when you teach technology, start with the why when we start the conception of an object. Why do we need it? Is there une pertinence pour ce nouvel objet? Puis si oui, mais est-ce qu'on peut utiliser d'autres matières? Can we reuse the stuff that we already use? In the 80s, I was roughly 10 years old or so, maybe younger, and I had that song in my head, reuse, blah, blah, and I thought I was doing a good job doing all of that. But we're still producing, again, more stuff. So where is that all going? And the energy that it takes to process all those things, to wash, to all the energy in terms of electricity, heat, everything. Alors, lorsque les ressources, the resources are used avec une perspective de cycle limitée, so we do the conception thinking, oh, it will do for 20 years. That's not enough. So, l'utilisation de déchets digestifs, that's the biggest important vector from that approach is that try to think when you conceive an object of what can be reused by the ground. So from cradle, from le berceau, the soil, back to the soil. Okay, so when we talk from cradle to cradle, it's taking it from the soil but reusing it. There's pencils now. I've used those with children. We did like an experiment. We tested it because I'll do the comment l'intégrer dans les classes. So we used it. We tried. We planted them. We had sprouts and things like that. The biggest criticism to cradle is David Steve's doing these cups that are made of corn cells, and you can plant them after you've used it and things like that. But how many cornfields do you need for that? You know. You always have to think about the change, the system, okay? To have a systemic view right from the start, right from your intention of conceiving, conceptualizing, designing. When we talk about designing a structure, a service, or an object, it is important to start with a perspective systemic qui vise la pérennité et l'équilibre du système. On parle de plus en plus d'une durée de 100 à 200 ans et peut-être même plus. Okay, so designing an object that we sustain, sustainable, durable, for more than 100 years. So, avec les enfants, ce que je fais souvent, c'est que je vais apporter des objets comme ça, puis on va les analyser. Alors, je vais passer à la prochaine. Dans le curriculum québécois, on a une démarche qui s'appelle la démarche d'analyse de conception technologique. So we analyze objects. We don't produce objects, we don't try to make objects, but we analyze them. Why? Not because I want them to become necessarily engineers, I would like, especially the girls, not because I want them to become mathematicians or scientists or anything, but even if they are an artist, think about the material you're going to use. Where does it come from? Why is it there? Start with the why. Always. I always start with the why with the children. Alors, de voir la technologie sur tous ses aspects, que ce soit social, éthique. Alors, quand on voyait tout à l'heure ici les différentes dimensions de l'objet, l'objet, ce n'est pas le système de production. L'objet, c'est à l'extérieur. Okay? Donc, il y a tout plein de systèmes qu'il faut prendre en compte. Social, culturel, économique et tout ça. Donc, quand on parle ici de tous ces aspects-là, on parle de tous les pôles des systèmes importants. Technologiques, scientifiques, pourquoi pas faire de la philosophie avec les enfants de l'art? Alors, quand on fait l'analyse de l'objet conceptuel, je leur donne par exemple, I don't know, ice cream scoop. That's fascinating. They're like, I don't know what this is. So they look at it, they look at the system, we break it, we open it, and we try to understand where is it coming. Do we really need this? Is a spoon, is it not enough? So all those questions are asked to the children because I want them to be des futurs travailleurs consciencieux. À chaque fois qu'on utilise quelque chose, de penser à d'où il vient, pourquoi on en a besoin. Alors, pour changer les structures, the systems, we have to change the cultures. And I think the children, the educators, are vectors of change. And pour les jeunes d'aujourd'hui, c'est important de commencer avec la culture.